This is Synopsis, a series of conversations in the framework of Abeceda Institute. I'm Neža Zupanc, and today's guest is Claudia Sofia Alvarez Cuba. Claudia, very welcome, and please, a couple of words of introduction.
Hello. Well, it's very nice to be here talking with Neža after some months seeing each other at the Abeceda Festival. Well, it's a pleasure to share with you today some thoughts about composition. Yes.
Lovely. Maybe you could start with addressing how you got to composition. Perhaps I know you stem from singing as your primary instrument. Could you elaborate briefly on what was your path in that sense?
Yes, sure. Well, it's very difficult to go to the very, very beginning or the origins of that. I think that, well, talking about composition or talking about creation, yeah, that's a creative impulse that we can have. Yeah, maybe this was something that was inside me since I was a child, like just playing with the voice or well, at that moment with the guitar or with the piano. Then, well, more formally, I was well, singing all my life. And well, part of singing or some of the um, practices that I used to do was in traditional folk music, in well, especially at school. Then obviously some rock music with some rock bands, some jazz, some improvisation. And in that moment in which, yeah, you start performing someone else's music, I think it came as a natural thing to just start trying things, not to say a song, but you know, yeah, the creative impulses that go through. And then, well, more entering into the lyric singing, which was maybe like 4 years or 5 years of my life, not as a like a formal study, but with private teachers, singing in choirs, which was like the most important years of my musical life education. I mean, singing in choirs has such a potentiality in understanding the human relations and how the music can be alive at that moment. So all these things, yeah, was coming to me in my head. And then because I studied first another formal career, yeah, and then I said, okay, I'll study singing like professionally in the conservatory, etc. But then because some teachers came to my life, some important people, I'll say, I chose composition as the formal career. But as I must say that at that moment, yeah, I was also like, for me, it was like playing with the piano, like playing with the voice. So then when finally taking the decision of studying formal composition, yes, I'll say that, yeah, I was like starting composing, like in this course, etc. But yeah, it was a natural path. And for me, going back to the voice, I think it was very important to, yeah, and nowadays too, like trying to go back also to that like more pure sense of being connected with music. Um, yeah, I think that having the voice as a primary instrument is something, I mean, till now, that really connects me to something pure, also abstract, but more physical, maybe. Yes, which I consider also important, like when composing. Yes.
And this is something I want to come back to, voice and how you addressed it right now. But first of all, you played in rock bands. Did you
Yeah,
sing?
when I was
Did you
15.
sing?
Yeah. Yeah,
Or did you
like
play electric
guitar.
guitar? What was it?
Yeah, electric guitar and all the yeah.
Really? For how long? Tell me more. Tell me more.
Yes, totally. Maybe since I was 15 until the teen. It was like 3 years period. Yeah, with
Hmm.
my yeah.
And what
Yeah,
kind of rock? What kind of rock music
it
was
was like
the
hard
music that
rock.
got you
Yes.
into it?
Yeah, there was some. Well, my parents listened to like classical rock, which has like a lot of influence in general. So yeah, sometimes we did some hard rock or some like rock from the 60s, 70s. I think the last band I played with, we were doing covers of Yes, which is a progressive rock, classical music, like something like that. Yeah.
All
Hmm.
right, all right. And
Yeah. So
curious.
yeah, it was interesting to
Out of
have that.
curiosity, was it generally American rock music?
Mainly
Mainly, right?
American rock music, which has a lot of sense, like as an maybe automatical thing you do, because well, in Latin America in general, the influence of the States is like so big that mostly mainly the culture that we get from firsthand is American music.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And how about the traditional music that you mentioned? Is that something that in Peru children all learn to sing? Is it a common thing, what you went through as well?
I think this will depend like a lot on the school you are, the teacher you are like with. Uh, but I think that especially in the last years, we're trying to appreciate like our own culture. But the fact that sometimes we don't have like written arrangements for folk ensemble or for a choir, a children's choir, or for a flute ensemble, for example,
Mm-hmm.
uh, like more difficult. I had the I was lucky that my teacher was really passionate. I mean, I had two teachers when I was like at primary school and then at secondary school, and they were like really passionate about making music with us. I was in a school just with girls, and well, they were very strict, I must say. And because my older sisters also studied at that school, it was when I was like 6 years, and well, my sisters used to like sing in the choir, like play the flute, etc. And they said like, okay, you are the little girl, so you will play like since 6 years. And for me, it was like, okay, I have my break. How do you say it? Yeah, yeah, the
Pause.
break.
Break
Yeah, the
between
pause,
classes.
and then I went to the music room, or on Saturdays. It was like very natural, and connecting with this folk music was also natural. So it was very interesting to also play some traditional instruments such as zampoña, which is an air. It's like a pipe flute, but with a lot of pipes
Pan
in.
flute?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a siku. Yeah, it's like a pipe flute, but with a lot of pipes, and you
Yeah.
pull them together and you play like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then I played the charango, which is very similar to our guitar, but it's smaller, and some percussion instruments, like
Mm-hmm.
folklore instruments. Yes. Mhm.
Uh, and composition you've been now studying also formally at the Peru in Lima, right? University?
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yes. We have a national conservatory. Well, it used to be a national conservatory. Now it's like the National University of Music of Peru, which is, well, a national institution.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I must say that maybe it's like the only one that gives formal studies and that has maybe more experience doing that. Has like maybe a year, no, 100 years and 20, no, 120 years like that. Yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
was mainly composer, well, a German composer in this times of refugees, etc. But some of them came here, and then he found, he started this school, and then because of the, uh, and that I think that was the first generation of composers here in Peru, like in the.
Which years were that? Was that
Yes, this was maybe in the very
pre-wars?
beginning of last century. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then, well, it was like uh maybe some years before they came some other professors, especially specifically like going out of the word of the second word. And then, yeah, I think it's quite of a similar story in different conservatories here in South America, especially that because of some people from Italy, for Germany that came, well, they were like giving lessons to
Of
people from
course, yeah,
here.
because this was
Yeah,
their professions from before.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, this is not the very start of composition here in Peru. Actually, in the 16th century, when you had the conquer, etc., the I mean, there is some production from Baroque music here in Peru too.
Right.
Uh, yeah, there is some classical period which is not so uh, it hasn't been so studied as it should, but especially in Baroque music, we have some important things
Right.
going.
So it's more the institutional
Yeah,
education
it's
that
not
was
like the
only brought
formal.
in the 20th century.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Um, so, with this on the table, um, the main subject of this conversation is compositional practice.
Mhm.
Could you perhaps make a short account of how you conceive of composition and of your practice, uh, and perhaps we can move from that on into your compositions, perhaps specific cycles like mantra, and speak more to that. So, firstly, I'm interested. What is your notion of compositional practice? How do you,
Mhm.
um, yeah, as I said, How do you conceive of this?
Yes. Well, sometimes we think that the composition can be like the final score, the final what we experience in a concert, what we see in a score, etc. But yeah, as we also can, yeah, we also can approach composition as something that it's like everywhere, or in general, that if we conceive composition as a discipline, it's um it's something that you daily engage with. But in uh, in that path, at least for me, it has been very important to conceive composition as a discipline, not only as the artistic purpose you will have with a specific work, but the process of uh, working on creation, on analysis, on developing material, on putting on your ideals, your values, in musical terms, and also in human senses. So just before talking about the technical part of it,
Mm-hmm.
well, something that for me is very important, like in everyday life, is to know why am I here, to know why I'm doing things. And when starting, or when connecting more with the discipline of composition itself, for me it was like the perfect way to say I know why I'm here nowadays. and the fact of having the opportunity to work with other musicians to take advantage that we're all alive right now in this specific, well, not country, but specific moment of the universe, for me, it's a privilege. So starting from that privilege of being alive and having the possibility of connecting with music as pure as possible, I think that giving us the opportunity to do it like an everyday, doing it every day, or trying to do it every day, to have a kind of a goal with composition, I think it worth a lot. So the fact that at least in the last 3 or 4 years, I'm trying to conceive some of my works as serious, has to do with this search too, like trying to settle one composition, not as a finalized score, like totally finalized, but trying to make it also as an opportunity to then grow, like musically, as an artistic deliver, etc. So specifically in Mantra series, since 2021, I think, I mean, it's like a baby, you know. You try to develop it and learn from what you are getting, and the fact that you're, at least in the last years, I'm trying to settle kind of compositions that I know that I will work with some specific people. So it's very important to have that feedback and to nurture with the experience of not just the performance of the premiere, which I think is just like the picture of one moment, but the work itself with other human beings, and feeling that the music, that people can react with the music within, and as listeners too, as listeners, yes.
And it's I perhaps have quite a sense, consciously or subconsciously, of what you're speaking to, since we work and study together. But for, let's say, a listener, what would be, could you further elaborate on what does it mean to keep the possibility of a composition having capacity to grow? You were saying that something keeps growing. How can a sheet of paper with notes on it, you know, what is it there that you can develop further?
Yes. Yeah, I think definitely, if we put composition as a final goal, which has like, we don't know how many years we'll stay in this planet, but anyway, the one work itself, yeah, as you said, has the potentiality of nurturing some other like access, you know. And sometimes when you discover some specific material while creating one piece of music, then sometimes you feel that you want to explore more with some material, but sometimes it's not like the moment to do it. And sometimes one specific piece needs something, and then if you want to do like everything you want, it can be like a masterpiece. You never know. But when you're, I think that when we're conceiving this kind of series, maybe you try to focus on some specific materials, and if something occurs in that moment and you are like also tempted to go further with it, sometimes it can be also interesting to try another one in which you explore more the other material. And maybe then you can do another one which you put together the two of them.
When you say material, you're referring to perhaps a melody or a harmonic
Mhm.
progression and
Yes.
harmony, melody, rhythm, um, and if I understand you correct, then with some compositions where you stem from is perhaps a very small particle, small. You're saying material, so perhaps just one melody, or I mean, I say just one. It can be
Mhm.
a lot to have one,
Mhm.
um, and then you expand from there. So, if I understand correct, one could say that's your origin, or the the origin for the rest becomes that particle, that is where you stem from in, let's say, more compositions, or that through developing one particle like that you get to creating another one like that. Is that perhaps another way to word this?
Yes, yes. Sometimes it can be a melody. It can be just a timbral combination of a couple of instruments that you like it, and then you want to explore more on that, or yeah, I mean, or maybe a structure that you, yeah, a formal structure that you think that it it was working in one specific piece,
Mm-hmm.
and then you want to go further with it, or maybe break a little bit, but maybe in this piece it's not the moment to break it, but you can do it in the next one. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yes.
And
Mhm.
how big of a role does instinct play here, if any?
Mhm. Yes, I think that when we're composing, sorry, we are like in, yeah, in touch with these two forces, like as we talk about, I don't know, Greek, the Dionysus part and the Apollonian part. It's like we're always like with all this, at least I feel that. And when you go to the score and you write down some specific uh, processes, like very objective things, yeah, I think that it's a way to do it, and we need to settle down everything like very consciously, because we're gonna deliver it somehow to a performer, etc. But for me, it's very important to also let this more intuitive uh, part of the creation to merge in that process, and yeah, to let go some ideas, and see where does it take it, that takes the piece. But the fact that you can find a balance from both things, at least it have worked better for me. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And perhaps on the case of your existing works, um, what would be the formal aspects of how you compose? Is there a consistent model that you use, or how does it work? Do you develop new formal models as you go? How do you work with form?
Mhm. Yes, I think that maybe in the last the first years of my career, it was much more influenced by the works I needed to do for school, I must say. And in a way, it was more connected maybe with programmatic, or with something I was trying to express, like really, yeah, more as a programmatic thing. Like I want this to have this character. But then when trying to also conceive music and sound, not only as a thing that needs to have a more literal meaning. I was also trying to go back to the formal forms or the traditional forms, maybe not to apply it in a very strict way, but to nurture from the past and to see how the material is organized in time. Because we experience music through the time, and it's a way of also dealing with memory of the listeners, memory of the performers, and memory of the piece itself, or how the events go out and in from the playing. So not in every piece, but at least in the last pieces I've done, I try to nurture from, I don't know, theme and variations, not as a very strict thing, but as how do you say, like basic shapes in which when you then can construct something else, or maybe a fugue, or maybe a sonata form, but something that can give you the basis, you know. But in some other pieces, you let the material to give you the form, which is also interesting. That depends.
Well, firstly, I know for a fact in some in mantras, you're also working with language. Obviously, mantras. There's always a mantra. How does that influence, perhaps not the form of what is in the end notated, but rather the form of the whole compositional process? Is there, perhaps in temporal sense, a process in place? And is there any other processes that are due to or next to this existence of a mantra, and from that a composition?
Yes, specifically for these compositions. Well, a mantra is like something that you can repeat and you can like incorporate gradually, and this specific maybe phrases or structures that can be developed in each of the numbers of the series has been some like more personal explorations, or more than explorations, maybe relations, or something that also has to do with some Buddhist philosophy that resonates with me in a way. And also it's a way of, well, this is like very personal, but trying to find these paths to become a better human being, to connect in a more pure way, sensitive way, honest way with other people. So it's like building these spaces also when doing a composition. For example, the last one, that the 7.0, was also trying to balance the fact that you can have one specific sound material that can be like very, in a way, notated, but then how the performer or the performers can take this and give what they have been playing, but also, well, specifically abeceda ensemble, they're like very they're very open, and most of them are like very, very high level performers, but also like creative and with a lot of like inner sense of expressing and connecting with each other. So I think it's like building these situations too. And for me, mantra is like this laboratory in which I can also explore these connections. Yeah, I think I've said something very like abstract.
If I may remark, it sounds like you're creating a method acting for composition.
But
Let's just, um, well, I mean, from from what from what you said and also otherwise, it sounds like, and this I say also, of course, I'm prefacing as this I'm placing here also as a theme that somehow evolved in the series of these conversations, of synopsis conversations, and that is human nature and composition. And it sounds like there's quite some lines of thought now you established that lead towards connecting in-depth knowledge of human nature and perhaps also research of that with composition, such as you were saying memory, and what that memory is actually quite a factor in how music is, if I understand correct, written, performed, and listened to. And after that, before, in the middle, thought of as. What do you think? Is it that I'm sort of making a claim that in a way, through music, it's also getting to know human nature, getting to know other human beings, and a certain level of existence that does not allow us to be addressed in any other sense but music. How would you treat that kind of a claim?
yes. Well, I think that the ideal situation will be to remain with that claim. I mean, in some other contexts, I don't know, when you have to really go into a professional work, I don't know, something for orchestra that, or I don't know, specific choir, etc., that you know that they will have like very, very few rehearsals and people just go play and go. I think it's not so easy to give or to deliver this kind of pieces. I mean, it's not impossible. I will try, but but at least by now I haven't.
Yeah.
But when you have the conditions and when you know that you're working with a specific people, or a piece can have the potentiality to gather some specific people, I think that this human aspect, it's very important, specifically nowadays, in which most of the music or the even film and everything is experienced in a square. So what do we give for the public that go to a concert if they can just go to Spotify or whatever and listen to it? For me, at least by now, it doesn't make a lot of sense to work so hard on a piece that will hear exactly the same, will be heard exactly the same as if in different situations. But if you also take this human aspect of knowing what the performer, that it's like 10 hours a day with their instrument, that also has this I mean, if we go back to the, I don't know, Baroque music or Renaissance, you had this really strict forms. But I don't know, if you have this aria da capo, you had the singer in which they were allowed to improvise a little bit within the context of the piece, or you have this impromptus. I mean, this not open forms, but possibilities of opening the music for having more freedom on the performers. I think that it's very important. And nowadays, in which things are so fixed, I think it's much more important to build that moments and experience the music together. I mean, the performers doing something very specific in a specific moment, in which you know that if you are someone in the public experiencing that, it's just that moment. I mean, you won't have the chance to experience it in other moments. So for me, that's magic. I mean, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, if I understand you correct, you are sort of qualifying different kind of listenings here.
Mm.
Since you mentioned there's you listen differently when you are in a hall in a live concert than when you put your headphones on and listen to Spotify. What
Mm-hmm.
what is different? You know what is then different in those cases?
Yes, I think that if you have like a specific recording, like perfectly produced, it's like perfect to listen with your headphones. And yeah, as it was like written, or not written, but it was performed for that occasion, which is a recording which is, I mean, I'm not saying that it's not important. I mean, it has been essential for the distribution of music, of always also having the opportunity to listen to different approaches to one specific score, and to study and etc., and to have connection with the past, with the present, and possibilities in the future. But what can we do different, like as the contemporary music scene, maybe delivering a specific concert in which maybe the listener won't understand so well the difference of listening at home or being in a concert itself. I mean, maybe I'm talking maybe in the context of Peru, in which the culture of going to a concert, it's quite incipient, yeah. So in that sense, I think that we have a
I didn't
role.
catch that word. What did you say?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's correct. Like
it's increasing or decreasing.
No, it's like very in a
Oh.
preliminary stage. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they go because it's like, I don't know, something from the very, very standard repertoire, and it's very well produced. Maybe they will have some motivation to go. But to go to maybe contemporary music, in which most of them will be premiere or premieres, etc., it's very difficult to engage with that public. And that's why we have like very, very, very few festivals. More than festivals is like maybe uh, private, uh, yeah, concerts. I mean, private, not held by maybe the national orchestra or a national institution. It's more about of a private collective of composers or some specific students that are organizing one specific concert, but it's not like a real scene. So I think it's a challenge to connect with public itself. So I think that also has to do with maybe the kind of music that we can deliver. Not that we have to make to like create another language or try to merge our language to be understandable, but maybe if they understand that there are some things that happen just in that moment, uh, yeah, it's kind of a privilege, which is very different from listening. It's like going to a jazz concert. I mean, it won't be the same. It won't be never the same. So, and people that are really into going to jazz concerts know this, know that, okay, I can listen one version at home, but going to the concert, it's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, what I think is that with contemporary music, it needs extra dedication to make it work in a musical sense, because it's so, it depends what kind of, but it's generally less approachable, less familiar, and it takes simply more effort to charm someone with a contemporary music piece. Of course, taking into the account that not all of contemporary music is supposed to be charming. But to that point, what do you as a composer do to ensure best possible conditions? You were mentioning how many conditions need to be in place for a music piece to be performed, right? Already just we're not even addressing what kind of how high of a quality of a performance it is. What do you do in, I'm assuming you do something. What do you do in order to assure best possible chance to the composition as a composer?
Yes, well, I'm not so sure if I'm trying to assure. I mean, it's a yeah, it's an ideal. At least I think that the fact that a performer can connect with a piece, it will definitely show something different to the public. I mean, I know that music itself has its power. It's, I mean, it's pure elements, or my role as delivering yeah, some specific material that will be performed and played, performed and heard. I know it has its own characteristics, and as you say, that maybe someone that is more familiar with some different languages will be more accessible to consider it or to appreciate that. But I think the fact that, at least in concert halls experiences, the fact that the performer it's really engaged into the work will automatically, I don't know, at least cost something to the one that it's experiencing it, listening or feeling it. Maybe they won't like it, but they will feel something that happening. Something is going there, not just like reading some notes. Yes, this might be like very subjective, I know, but
yeah.
and
Well, yeah.
so for me, at least, the fact that right now I'm alive and that you have the chance to talk to the performer, it's trying also to make the not the piece but the delivery the more understandable as possible. If there are some things that can be written in another way, but to have a more free performance or a more comfortable performance, for me that's much more important, because yeah, you need to also enjoy the music that you're playing. Maybe not as the character of the music has to be joyful, but enjoy all the affects that can be involved, or all the spectral sound phenomena that it's happening within a composition. But yeah, I think that assuring in a sense that the composition will be uh, playable, accessible for the performer. Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
When you try to just think about the music and I don't care if the performer can play it, and if no one understands it, it's yeah, it's valid, but I think I'm going a little, I'm putting some distance to that thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say that what is helpful, what I see at this point is a, a great entry point into making any kind of music accessible is, I think, hearing more pieces by the same composer.
Mm.
So so that you actually get familiar with I don't know, more, let's say at least 5 pieces of one's opus could play a part. And on this matter, I would like to return to mantra. Can I hear more on mantra as a series of compositions, which is out and which everyone can probably access somewhere on the internet? How many pieces are there now?
Yeah, I think it's a little spread, like not in one specific website. I'm working on that. Not so good at putting together my
That's all right.
my thing, but um, uh, by now, at least in the platforms, I think there are one, two, three. I mean, the mantra 1.0. Yeah, it's I think in my YouTube channel, and the 3.0. I think the 2.0, yes, it's like in the Ictus ensemble channel, I guess so. And the fourth and the seventh are on abeceda channel. And I think the fifth one might be not as video, but as audio. I
So
think that
seven mantras out there.
the sixth one is not finished, but
Oh my
I
God.
started it. Yeah, I started it before the seventh, but yeah,
Claudia.
yes,
Okay.
this happens. It
So
happens.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, of course, of course.
Mhm.
So yeah, so you have 6 pieces. What? Okay, it's
Ah, but
obvious.
there's a zero. There's a zero, and
There's
there's
a zero.
And there's an infinitum too, which is something of electronics that it's also online. Yes.
right?
Mhm.
First the
Yeah.
infinitum, and after everything else.
Yeah.
Good. So that's 8 pieces.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
what is common to all of these pieces? Can you speak to that? It's probably sounds obvious, but for someone that never heard of it, what is it? The mantra series.
Yes. I think that what it's common to each of them is, it might sound very cliche, but trying to enter to a maybe mind state uh, in which you can try to travel to listen, maybe not specific, like very very much developed material, uh, but a kind of vibrations or structural forms that tries or invite the listener to, yeah, to enter to certain states. um I don't know if saying this as a unconscious state, or trying to open the piece in a way that you can get connected with some metaphysical spheres, but at least for me is that. And if one can resonate with that, that's a pleasure. Yes. Mhm.
And uh, what what are the mantras on which these pieces are based, or just perhaps uh, even if not specifically, what are the themes or what are the mantras about here? What what are we talking about?
Mhm. Yeah, just to remark some of them. For example, the very very first one, that it's a 1.0, and the one that was written actually first. Uh, it's about like experiencing, sorry, the physical part of existence. So it was also for the performers, like trying to first see the possibilities of their physical instrument, and not, maybe not always played as they were used to, uh, but getting into trying to be conscious about that physical experience
Mm.
of the instrument itself. And maybe then, because of how they are experiencing different phases of their instruments, uh, trying to build all this also sound materials, and to decant into a, yeah, kind of chant, yes, yeah, like a singing last part in which it can, the vibration or some specific motives that were presented at the beginning of the piece can sound up as liberated from a process. Yeah. And it's like very much more metaphysical. It's difficult to explain, to put it into words, definitely. Um, because when building the piece, I think each of the pieces uh, also trying to think that within the maybe the pitches, or with the density of the sound, you can also um, let some physical but also internal effects happen. So sometimes I use some like graphics, or some colors to see the structure, and how to like organize this energetic um, points in the piece. So it's like For example, for the third one, that is like for, I think, two sopranos and cello. Well, the mantra is different, but the very first condition of the form trying to open something in the space, not only in the hearing space, but also in the, yeah, in the human space. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, it's like the main point. So how can different things happen, some moments of tension, etc., then you can experience a kind of liberation. Yes. Mhm.
And music and language, what do you, how do you um, address that when it comes to this gap between them? May it be when speaking of mantras or presenting your compositional work. Do you think of this challenge?
Yes, it's definitely very challenging in the way that the abstract thinking or maybe music itself, it might not have a literal meaning itself. Uh, but the but trying to also put it in words is it's important because it's the way how we are, how we, yeah, we um sorry, I'm
It's in
speaking in
high
I'm
demand. It's in high
sorry.
demand. If nothing else, it's in high demand for sure.
Yes,
To-
yes, but I think that the relations of language and music are like so historical, and the fact that language gave birth to music, or maybe on the other sense, I mean, there's some, it's a mystery at this point, and that's why, and maybe this is not something that I've shared so much with abeceda because of the conformation of the ensemble, but I must say that for me, maybe the more natural way of composing is for voice and for voices, and maybe a couple of works have been without words, but I think when words and music get together, yeah, some other kind of magic happens, and I enjoy also a lot that process. I mean, this is very very much different from, not very, but it's different from the mantra series, in which the language is more like to maybe build a structure, or maybe to give a more uh, something more as an insight, and that then can be transformed into sound that might not be so literal or so uh, meaningful like for the others. That maybe it's more like how I understand, or I want to construct this yeah, these planes. But when doing the opposite, like setting music to, no, yeah, setting the music for a specific poem or a specific libretto, I think it happens something, yeah, something magical too. And it's quite a challenge in the sense in which also, yeah, I think that opera and well, lyrical singing is something that it's also in a way disconnected of nowadays public, but even though I think it worth it. I mean, human voice has this totally human power itself, and the fact that it has, at least in the past, it has connected maybe with uh, yeah, a more popular public, if we can say so. And the fact that singers are also like a whole different world. Yeah, it's also, it's more challenging, I must say, but something I really enjoy, and I think it's a way to try to connect more with people that are very conditioned by language, I mean, by spoken language, and that sometimes can't engage so much with like pure music, and it's like an entry to maybe a more abstract form of music. Yes.
Yeah, uh, I am
Mm,
noticing that as well.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and uh, n- to be fair, I will never forget it. Was there was no words, but in the there was singing in the mantra we performed in Blade 2024.
mm,
Um,
mhm.
and I won't ever forget that part. Um, um, do you see yourself writing an opera or more choral compositions in the future?
Mm, yes. Well, I've done some choir pieces, not as much um, as I would like to. Uh, Maybe as I said before, mm, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's something that I really want to, but the fact that sometimes you don't know who you can work with, uh, it's something that maybe in the last 5 years, as a natural thing, I have been working more with like ensembles, uh,
Mhm.
but I always try to do something like for voice. I mean, this year, actually the last piece I wrote just before finishing the pieces for abeceda this year was a cycle of three poems, uh, based on the text of Andrea Potos. She's a poet, American poet, and well, this was a gift to my mother. It was a cycle totally and entirely dedicated to her. And yes, it was something like very special, very personal. It was like, um, sometimes you also need to, well, to use composition as a catharsis. Why not? It's not all so serious. and and yes, uh yeah, it was hard to put a lot of emotions, but also a lot of musical uh relations with the text. And when you're using text because you're using meaning to, you are creating, yeah, meanings, and the fact that it will be maybe performed in a concert hall, the fact that sometimes the words can say something but the music can say another thing at the same time, or maybe before or maybe after, it's something that for me it's interesting too. uh this year I had the opportunity to work in a music play, no, not music play, a play. I put the music on a play, and to see how, in this case, the director and the director of the play try also to play with the time when the elements happen. I mean, if you're saying I'm standing up and then you stand up at that moment and the music also give you the feeling that you're standing up, it's like too much. Why not playing with this not synchronic way of putting together the different meanings for a spectator, or the lights, whatever. So also when setting music to words, yeah, you can play with that uh, synchronic way of putting the music or not. I mean, it's not always like they don't have to be together always. Um, and that's why I also find very interesting to, I've done a couple of monodramas. I won't say operas, they're more like monodramas. But it's also interesting how music can have a can be perceived as a different character that has a role itself in the drama. So yeah, it's about the singing, it's about the words, but it's also about how music can open the listeners, can open some other affects that words can't. Yeah.
Curious. Is that, yeah, okay. Well, on this point, actually, since we are approaching the end of the conversation,
Mhm.
could you send two messages for the listeners? I always ask for my guests for one message to anyone that aspires to start composing, and one message to anyone that will listen to your pieces after this. Now, there, this last message is already something that one could get throughout the conversation, but nevertheless, um, if you could please address those.
Yes. Yeah, okay. So yes, I think that for someone that is starting composing or that it's composing, uh yeah, I mean, I can say a lot of technical things, but the most important is to be convinced that composition is your way of walking in this physical plane, and that it's your purpose, that it's, at least for me, it's it's when I wake up in the morning and I say, yeah, this is why I'm alive, or I'm still alive, or that's why I'm giving meaning to my existence. So the fact that you're giving this meaning, but also that you can do it with love, that you can be passionate with that, will, as a consequence, give you also the impulse to set composition as a discipline, to have the discipline to do it as a, not only as something that you have to do because of a career, of a profession, or for a title or whatever, but it's the possibility of creating uh, some artistic, or some artistic sphere, we can say, that somehow will remain. I mean, if we write it on a score, we're in a, well, they're not totally lost, but in a way we're dealing a little bit with the future. So the possibility that then that work can have its own life, and we're building this space for people to connect, and build these relations between performers or with the public. I think it's very important to keep in mind that we have one mission. Yes.
Wonderful. Claudia, thank you very
And
much. Oh, yeah.
sorry, I forgot the one for the
Yeah,
listeners. Yeah,
I thought
it's quite the
it's so
same. Yeah.
universal that you
Yeah.
actually intended it for both, but please go.
Oh, I
If
think it's just the same. I mean, for listeners is to understand that we as composers, try to give sense to, or give meaning to, not our lives, but life itself, like connecting with music through creation. So yeah, it's nice to give us the chance to experience that too. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Neža. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.